say something again.
Okay, we're now testing.
Okay.
Well, I was born in Spokane, Washington. We moved, my dad was a golf pro and my mother was a pipe worker. 7th grade, we moved, my brother and I and my parents, to Sandpoint, Idaho, and my dad became the pro there, and my mother taught piano and organ in Sandpoint. And we were Lutherans. I was raised Lutheran. When I was an undergraduate, I became a practitioner of Zen Buddhism. I sort of abandoned my Lutheranism as sort of irrelevant to me, and of course in the 60s I was a flower child, as opposed to a hippie. A flower child were the more spiritual end of things. And I worked as a psychologist and I taught in a small college. And then I sort of had an early midlife crisis when I was in my mid-30s, when I decided that I wasn't sure that I really trusted my profession. I felt like a lot of people were becoming codependent on their therapists because the therapist needed the income, and I was finding quick ways of bringing healing for people who had psychological problems that were often needing just simple things like running every day, and to lose their stress and feel better about themselves. And so when I was criticized by some of my peers, and more I just thought, well, you know, I'm not really sure that this is for me. And I came to realize that a lot of people's psychological problems were really of a spiritual nature, and I was not equipped for bringing healing to them. So I took a year off and put everything in storage, and of course bought a VW van, and which I have a little memento in my office. I just took Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha and bought a lot of camping equipment, and traveled up and down the coast, down to Big Sur, and spent a year on the road and visiting old friends in Berkeley, and just on this quest. And it was during that time, toward the end of that time, that I entered Holy Virgin Russian Orthodox Cathedral on Gary Boulevard in San Francisco for the first time, and was kind of blown away by it and felt like, well, this is maybe for me. And so I ended up becoming Orthodox, and then deciding that rather than go back to my career, I wanted to be a monk. So I resigned my positions via letter. Didn't tell anybody what I was going to do because I didn't want to be the subject of psychoanalysis at cocktail parties.
I can see that.
And so I've not looked back. I've been happier than I ever probably deserved. Well, we begin we all are awake by 4, and we have what we call the cell rule. The cell rule is this time when each monk has his own private prayer rule, which is his own meditation time, his own prayer rule, assigned prayers, and then spiritual reading. And that goes on until 6 o'clock, when we have the common service in the church. The Catholicon it's called, which is the main temple here. And that's the Matin service most of the days in the week. That starts at 6 o'clock, and that's 2 hours, so that ends a little after 8. And then coffee and maybe some toast or something, and then we go do our obediences for the day. So each monk has his assigned obediences. So We have free-range hens that need to be tended to. We have a large organic garden. We have orchard trees. We have bees. We have our own coffee company, Monastery Blend Coffee, which is an award-winning coffee that we won all the blind taste tests in Seattle. I do a blog. It's called The Morning Offering, and I also do a podcast called The Morning Offering on Ancient Faith Radio. I've done a few YouTube videos. The reason why I do this is because that's the way you young people communicate. Yeah. I even have an iPhone, and I text message. Rather than preach against texting, I text. Now I know full well that if you post a photograph on Facebook, that anybody can use it. And the same way with my material that I write isn't copyrighted, so anybody can use it. But I don't care, because I want to communicate with as many people as I can with the message that I have to share, and that's what I'll do, you know, to sort of reach out. I know that there was a time when I was getting into my middle 40s, I'm 67 now, where I was thinking, gee, if I had kids, I would be having grandkids. And I mentioned it to a friend who pointed out that in a way I have kids and grandkids, because I have a lot of spiritual children, and lots of families visit here, and I get to, I don't have to pay for their education. I still worry about them. I get to meet a lot of very interesting people here. I have had the Consul General of the Russian Federation here. I have had Buddhist abbots here. The Zen abbot on Vashon Island is a good friend of mine. He comes over and we sit in front of the fireplace about every 2 months and have a vodka martini together. I have had Muslims visit us. I have been very fortunate to have a wide range of visitors and friendships over the years, which is very fulfilling. And I love when families visit, and I often will read children's storybooks right here with kids sitting here. So I have a full life, and I can't really think of anything. And I also really like the idea that when I do counsel, and I'm probably a better therapist now than I was when I was in the profession, but now I don't charge, and I like that. I feel better about that. And yeah, so I don't regret anything. I don't feel like I'm wanting. Salvation is something that involves not just me, but it involves everyone, and it involves the entire cosmos. In other words, the entire cosmos is being redeemed, which is why it's important, for instance, that we care about the environment. It's why it's important that we care about animals. We have free-range hens here. We've had 2 of them die of old age, because when they came here, I promised them that even when they were no longer laying eggs, that we would still love them. And so we have a cat that's very famous here. It's called Hammy. Hammy is part of our family. He's not just a cat. He's like a little person to us. And that's how we feel about all of life out there. as I said earlier, it's the whole cosmos that is being spiritually transformed and changed and made whole. And so I have to be just as concerned about your salvation as I have to be concerned about mine. And that's the Orthodox way. My other interests is atheism, and because atheism is growing, the number of people that are adhering to atheism. Well, rather than being frightened by that, I'm not frightened by anybody that chooses atheism. Because I think, as I told one young woman who told me that she was an atheist, and I've had that happen in classes that I've lectured at, that somebody will say, well, I'm an atheist, but. Well, usually I will have them define atheism. Who is the God you are denying? And they give me this image of this God, and I agree with them. I don't believe in that God either. But if you're going to be a person of faith, and you avoid the possibility that there is no God, that there's nothing to religion, because you're afraid to encounter that thought, then essentially you're not going to go deeper into faith, because your faith is superficial. So I, as an individual, have allowed myself to look at the possibility that there is no God, and that even my life as I've been living it is like, well, I could have been doing lots of other things. I could be retired and living in the Bahamas by now, for that matter, But because I wasn't afraid to look into this sort of abyss of nothingness, it's made my faith deeper. And so that's why I don't discourage anyone from looking at that. We're all on this journey together, and the most important thing is that we listen to one another and we respect one another, and that we not look at anyone else's views as being demonizing other people's views or ideas, but rejoicing in diversity and celebrating diversity and being made better by diversity. So that's my big thing. I celebrate diversity, and I don't proselytize. I share.
All these roads to nothing.
Wait, do you see there's a person?
That's a buffalo.
Wait, what are these?
That's not a person. That's a buffalo.
Those are sheep. Those are sheep. No, further up the road there was a person walking.
You shall not pass.